Strongman is back again, people. It feels like we've had so many competitions recently. Giants Live, Strongest Man on Earth, we've got the Rogue Invitational coming up, and now we have another Giants Live competition coming up, the World Log Lift Challenge and Giants Live World Open. It's the final Giants Live show of 2025 up in beautiful Glasgow, Scotland. Well, Scotland is beautiful, Glasgow maybe not so much, but it is the final show on the Giants Live calendar, and today we're going to talk about the athletes that are going to be competing there and the events. I'm going to keep my predictions for a later date because we're still about 4.5, 5 weeks out, and there's potentially some people are going to pull out, some new athletes come in, and I want to see their training, see how they're doing leading up to the event instead of jumping in and predicting it far too early. So without further ado, without me rambling on far too much, let's take a look at the 13 athletes that are competing. First up, we have 3 times World's Strongest Man, Tom Stoltman. Of course, with the show being in Scotland, it's one that Giants Live like to try and get the Stoltmans in for. Which leads us nicely onto the current Britain's Strongest Man, 2 times Europe's Strongest Man, and current British log press record holder, Mr. Luke Stoltman. And talking of British log press records, we have the man who wants to take it off Luke Stoltman, that being Jack Osborne, who is only down to do the log press. Someone that will be coming for some vengeance is Evan Singleton. After an awful day out at the Deadlift Championships, he'll be looking to set the record straight and take his 8th Giants Live win. Another man that has won multiple Giants Live shows is Mateusz Kieliszkowski, the Terminator from Poland. We then have the return of the great Ukrainian, Alexei Novikov, who we've not seen for some time, but hopefully he can come back and be in good shape for this one. Coming to try and break his own junior record is Andrei Foitu of the Czech Republic. A fan favourite returning to Giants Live to show what he's capable of is Evans Nana. All the way from America, we have Tim Buck. Second place finisher at this year's Canada's Strongest Man is James Jeffers, coming over to Scotland. We then have another Ukrainian athlete whose name I cannot pronounce. It's Ola Pylipiak, making his Giants Live debut. I know I probably butchered that, but I gave it a good go. UK's Strongest Man, Andy Flynn, is coming to Glasgow. And last but not at all least, another Canadian, former podium finisher at the World's Strongest Man and podium finisher at this show last year is Maxime Boudreau. 13 athletes all down as being confirmed for the show. However, I'm not too sure about Tom Stoltman and Evan Singleton. Of course, Tom Stoltman injured his bicep at the Strongest Man on Earth, and in the recap video that he did, he said he was pulling out of the Deadlift Championships and he may be pulling out of this. He's trying to get back for the Rogue. Now, whether or not he uses this competition as sort of a last training session to see how he's doing, maybe get a bit of competition fitness before the Rogue, I'm not too sure, as it's only sort of 2 weeks before the Rogue Invitational. A similar sort of story when it comes to Evan Singleton. He, of course, injured his hamstring at the World Deadlift Championships. He is down to do this show, but he will be wanting to come in top shape for the Rogue Invitational instead of risking another injury or making that injury worse, trying to get back into competition before necessary. I also don't think you can blame either of them if that is what they decide to do. After all, Strongman is a business to them and their body is the machine that they need to run the business. So why would they put their body at risk if it means that it's going to be a detriment to their business or to their career, which when you've got the Rogue Invitational coming up, which pays such a high prize, and both of these guys will be wanting to go for the top spot, why would you take the risk? I know that I wouldn't, and I wouldn't blame anybody else that wouldn't want to take the risk. I do think that we as Strongman fans, myself included, forget that these competitions take a massive toll on the body. And we've seen it with the likes of Alexei Novikov, who was on he was on an absolute tear for 3, almost 4 years, and then the injuries stacked up, and now we've not seen him back at that shape for a while, and we may never see him back in top form like Alexei was back in 2020, 2021. A similar thing with Mitchell Hooper. He has decided to take the break now, but he's coming back for the Rogue Invitational, of course. But he was on an incredible streak for the best part of 3 years, and the injuries just pile up. We have to remember as fans that if we want to see these guys stay in the sport for a longer time, they may have to miss some competitions that we may want them to do. But it's all part and parcel of the game. It's all part and parcel of the sport. I just hope that all of the athletes can come into the competition fit and healthy. And if they aren't fit and healthy, they should sit the competition out and give that spot to somebody who deserves the spot, is fit and healthy, and is coming to really really challenge for the title. Anyway, let's take a look at the events that we have this year. There is 5 of them, and we are starting with the max log lift. Of course, it is the World Log Lift Challenge. This tends to run similar to how the deadlift did at the deadlift championships. The jumps, I believe, are normally 170, 185, and then 200. I'm hoping, though, that we might have a few jumps in between that so that we can separate the guys on points. They could do it something similar to the way they did the deadlift in terms of 2 people pressing at the same time. The only issue, I suppose, with that is that they use wooden logs, and wooden logs are very, very difficult to get exactly the same. In fact, you can't get them exactly the same. So there might be a small bit of discrepancy. One might be slightly easier to press, maybe even slightly lighter than the other, and it's not entirely fair. Of course, they would only do that for the lighter weight, so maybe it doesn't matter quite as much, but I also feel like they probably won't do that. But either way, I do want to see a few more jumps in between those weights, because I believe that some people might be good for, say, 192, but they're not good for 200. So their best lift would then be 185, but they could actually press, 7.5 kilos more than that. They just can't press 15 kilos more than that. Anyway, I'm not sure. There's a whole lot of speculation. Hopefully, we find out before the event. So then we can do a prediction video of what we think people are going to hit on the log press, similar to how Loz and Liz did theirs, what they think people are going to hit on the deadlift. I really enjoyed that style of video, and I'm about to steal the idea, essentially. Event 2, we have the load and push, and from the photo I put on screen, it's pretty self-explanatory as to what you have to do. Basically, you pick up a couple of tires, maybe 2 or 3 tires, run them down the course, chuck them into a skip wheelbarrow, and then wheelbarrow the skip back down over the finish line. I did have a scroll back through the Giants Live competitions, and the last time that we saw this was in September of 2023. It was at the Giants Live World Open, which was held in Cardiff, and fun fact, that was Austin Andrade's first ever Giants Live competition. I'm glad that this event is back. It's always one that's just enjoyable to watch. It's fast paced, they get through it quick, and it's just fun to see people chucking tyres into a skip and pushing a skip down a course. The third event of the competition is one that I believe is the funniest in strongman, and that is the duck walk into the anchor drag. Now, the anchor drag is absolutely fine, but the duck walk, I think, is just, it's such a bad strongman event. What you basically have to do in a duck walk is pick the weight up between your legs and then run or waddle down the course. The anchor drag back is simple enough. You pick up the end of the metal chain and you drag the anchor backwards over the finish line. Fastest time wins. It's another fast-paced event, which I believe is what is needed after the log press and with the event that we have coming up after this one. I don't really understand why they keep bringing duck walk back. I know we don't see it as frequently in competitions these days as we used to, but it seems to heavily favour the taller, longer-legged athletes. I suppose one of the things is doing the anchor carry into the drag would be very similar to the previous event, so having the duck walk in there does change it up a little bit. And look, I think the duck walk is actually quite enjoyable to watch. I just think that for the shorter athletes with the thicker thighs, they're already at such a disadvantage, especially when it comes to moving events, that why put them at even more of a disadvantage? And I know that's just strongman. That is just strongman in general. The taller, leaner athletes tend to have a harder time pressing things overhead, and the shorter athletes tend to have a harder time when it comes to power stairs or atlas stones. All I'm saying is that duck walk makes it even more difficult for the shorter guys with the thicker legs to beat the taller, leaner guys. The penultimate event is the wrecking ball hold. And I personally prefer this sort of event over a Hercules hold. You've probably heard a lot of the athletes say that it is a full body taxing event, and that is true. I have done this event before, and it really is brutal. It's not a grip event in the slightest, because essentially you can lock your fingers against your legs, bend your legs slightly, and it's pushing down. It's not going to open up. It's how long can you stand there and endure the pain, or do you pass out beforehand? I think there's a chance of seeing good times on this as well, because their bodies aren't going to be too battered after the first 3 events. Yes, we have the max log lift, but there's no deadlift event in this, so the central nervous system won't be as fatigued as it could be. So there's potential to see good times. Maybe not. I'm not sure. It's not a very enjoyable event to watch, because basically all it is they stand there on a platform and hold a big wrecking ball for as long as possible. Last but not least then, we have the Castle Stones. And if you've watched the video up until this point, please subscribe. And you should also know what the Castle Stones are. But for those people who maybe don't, it's just an Atlas Stone run. It's 120 up to 200, the heavier set. And I think we just need to retire the lighter set. Giants Live need to come out on social media or maybe have it at a show where they say the lighter set is done, because we never see it anymore. The lighter set, I believe, finished at 180, but I cannot remember the last time that they used a lighter set. Maybe they used it at England's. I don't even think they used it at England. So that set, it needs retiring. And then this set that finishes in 200 can become the new light set. That's what I would do. I would create a new set which finishes at 220 to only be used for certain shows. Maybe Europe's Strongest Man, for example, which is a big title. And then the one that finishes in 200 can be used for the other Giants Live shows. But there we have it, guys. 5 events, 13 athletes. Jack Osborne being the only one that's not doing the full show. Well, from what I know anyway. The other 12 are supposed to be doing the full show. Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel so that you don't miss the prediction video when that drops in the next few weeks. See you later.